Good evening, welcome to my weekly Node-RED live stream, an hour or so of some Node-RED core development. Good to have you back. Say hi in the chat if you're here. See Softy2K, Old Baby Tables, Michio, all here. Great to see you guys. Nice to have you back. Yeah, hope you're all well. What are we up to tonight? Well, it's the slow march to 3.0. There's no shortage of stuff for us to be doing. Let's just dive straight into looking. So this is the 3.0 milestone. This is the stuff we've already got assigned. It's not all, let me just sort my lighting out a bit. It's not all must do for 3.0, but it's all good stuff for us to be wading through, just adding lots of nice little things along the way, things as we go. And as you can see, Steve's been making a dent in this list, which is awesome. There's quite a few still assigned to me, which is going to keep me busy. And then there's some other new feature stuff that I don't think is even in this list that we want to look at. Yeah. Soft2K says in the chat, please don't forget to include limit search for current flow. Well, allow search to be limited to the current flow. There you are. I think that's exactly the one you're talking about. So yeah, it's on the list. It won't get forgotten, or at least it will be consciously not done if it doesn't happen. But it's on the list, so it won't get completely forgotten about. So for tonight, yeah, well, we're just going to dive into a couple and see how we get on. If you were with us last week, is Node not running? No. If you were with us last week, we spent some time adding some code to allow nodes to auto-generate their names when they get added. I completely reworked it after last week's live stream, how it was implemented under the covers, but it's now merged. It's in the dev code base, and if I I reworked it so that now you can, not only does it apply when you drag on new nodes, but you can actually select a bunch of nodes, and there's an action, generate node names. So that's quite handy, having it as an action, so you can run it against anything you've got. And crucially, it works. It will do the naming for all nodes. So it's using a standard pattern of the node, the palette label followed by an index. But crucially, like this function node, which already has a name, it doesn't modify nodes that already have a name property. So that's good if you just want to select a bunch of stuff and rename them. But if you were watching last week, then one of the bits of feedback, one of the ideas was it would be nice if the metadata in the debug sidebar here included what flow a node was on. So not just the node information, but also what flow. And if I actually give this debug node a name, deploy that, clear that out. So here I've got an inject going to two debug nodes, one with a name, one without. You can see here up in the, well, you can just about make out. Let's make that bigger. Computer enhance. You can see the node that has a name, we put the name up there. If it doesn't have a name, then we put its node ID there. So at least you have some frame of reference. But node IDs aren't that useful because users don't know their IDs off the top of their heads, which is the whole reason for auto-generating the names. yeah, and then there's another case where nodes log errors. So where the messages here don't come from debug nodes. Yeah, and so that's another scenario of, it's a question of, is it useful to have the node type listed here as well? Now, I think on balance, we've got to weigh up here. If we end up adding a whole bunch of information there, then it just becomes cluttered and harder to use because there is so much information. But yeah. But what? I don't know. Don't know where I'm going with this. But there was a suggestion of actually having the flow name would be useful. And we know that all flows have a name. In fact, what happens if I... Yeah, so never considered that. Anyway, we won't worry about that. But it's reasonably safe to say that most flows will have a name, if anything, because they have always automatically had a name applied to them. So let's have a little play around with what does it mean to stick the flow name in the metadata we have going on up here. And how might we lay it out? So to do that, we are going to dig into the debug node, I think. Oh, it's the code provided by the debug node to provide the sidebar. So we're in the node repository, packages, node modules, @node-red, nodes, because that's where all the nodes live, core, common, debug. So if we open up debug.html, and I am pretty sure, yeah, so this is the code that does it. He says, one sec. No, so this is the code that registers the debug nodes. It isn't the code, is it? Okay. The debug node does things slightly differently. So the HTML node for the debug node is what registers sort of the basic stuff to do with the debug node. But the debug node's got this curious feature that you can actually pop up a new window and the debug messages will appear in here. For that to work, we've actually moved out a lot of the debug functionality into its own set of files that can be served up separately. So the code that actually deals with the message list and the appearance of the full appearance, we've got there eventually, is this debug utils file. And if I'm just scrolling through looking for show message list, we want message list is what we care about. Process debug message, here we go. Process debug message, this is the function that gets called for each message that arrives to get displayed. And this is what starts doing the work to actually build the information. Let's make this big so you can easier for you lot to see. So scanning down through this code, here I can see I create a row called debug message meta, and here you can see we have a local function called get timestamp. Then that gets added to the meta row. Then if we know the source node, here is where it's creating the, here you can see there's the node colon, if I just scroll over a bit, then either the name or the source node or the ID of the source node. So here we are, slap. This is the code that is generating this stuff up here. So the question is, how do we want to rearrange it? Now, okay, so Steve's suggesting in the chat, for a bit of space saving, squeeze the flow name, how about slimming down the date and replacing the word node with the flow name, something like yada yada yada. It's a very valid point that the date is not so useful because this is a real-time stream and the editor's not a dashboard, so yeah, it's having the year is probably not useful. It could even be said having the whole string there isn't so useful. As in, would it be more useful just to have the time? So let's start looking at that. So get timestamp is the function we call, and at the moment we call to locale string. Let's just remind ourselves. Oops, not like that. Not like that. We want is there a to locale time string? There sure is. So that will save a bunch. And then Steve's reading my mind. If it becomes an issue, we can absolutely, well, not an issue. There's no reason we can't be able to reveal more information by hovering. Would be one approach to doing it. The other thought I've had is actually we do have this drop-down menu. We could almost cheat with this drop-down menu and have some non-menu, sort of non-selectable items which give some of that extra information. But yeah. Okay, so that has saved a bit of space, although there is part of me that thinks there is part of me that wonders, there will be some users who would like to have the date there. There are times when I come to a Node-RED instance that's been open in a tab and it's not been running for a while, and that actually tells me for how long has that tab been open in the background. So Zormo suggesting a relative time, so how many seconds ago. That's the problem with that is that's forever changing. So we would have to constantly be changing these timestamps to tell you, as more time has passed, how long ago those timestamps were, if that makes sense. So it would be different if we were refreshing, and like if it's a log which you're reloading, and we can present a relative time from the point you're loading the information. But here, I don't think relative time makes sense. But yeah, well, no, but I don't think it makes sense. So we'll just stick with the time for now. Then we're going to say, so if source node. So this is the bit that says we know where this node has come from. Well, we know yeah, this has come from a node. What I'm going to try first, I'm just going to copy that, and we're going to add flow. And I am absolutely just copying it all. So it's not going to show the right thing. It's going to show us the node name twice, but forget that. In terms of how it looks, we would now have, and yeah, this is what I want to look at. So we could have both the node and the flow. Yeah. which trouble is it now wraps far more readily. Because we're going to potentially, these are going to be longer strings. So yeah, it doesn't quite work for me. And I think without the node and without the flow, just the bare text risks it being well, less clear what the things are. So let's see, what else could we do? We've got more stuff to do with the meta row. Now let's inspect just to understand the structure of what we've got going on. So, okay, so the message meta is that entire top block. And then as it currently stands, we do just fill the space. But here, message topic has display set to block, which is what causes that to be an entire line. So for example, here, if I just set display to block on the style of this new flow element, label, then again we're getting, the problem is it's sort of information you want there, but you don't want it in the way. Yeah, and this is yeah. Problem with keeping it max length is if it ends up just having space to say flow : FLO or something ridiculous, then that ain't going to work. No. This is just a lot. It's a lot of metadata. Yeah, these are one of those issues I'm just gonna just iterate on and keep playing around with. Okay, whilst we're thinking that over, I'm also going to just do the work to make sure we've got the flow name and ID, and make sure that's getting passed through properly. So, here you can see process debug message. It's _source seems to be the thing we care about. See. Yeah, _source is what we care about. If we go just scanning through these, yeah, I think we need to go into the debug node. Here we go. So source node, that's where we attach it to the object that gets passed through to the debug sidebar. What we're going to do is add in a new object. In fact, no, we don't need to do it as a new object. We still stick it under source. Here you've got the Z, which is the ID of the flow. I don't know if the actual login. This will not necessarily the same as the source node, which will be the top level Subflow. Oh yeah, subflows is going to be an interesting aspect to all of this. But let's try this. Red.nodes.works. Workspace. If we just label, that's what we want. So we do that with source node.z. You know, I've been getting really used to being able to write that syntax, question mark dot, which is very new JavaScript syntax that lets you reference properties of an object but cope with it being null, because we do need to handle it being null. So source flow, oh, let's not hard code in that. And down here we can do slightly more long-winded. Label source node.z. Okay, so now back here, we ought to be able to do, if I find the right place again, here where we're building up the text of flow, we can use, we know source node will exist at this point. Let's try that. So when I inject that, yay, so it says flow 1 and it's got the node. So, all right, so we've got the information. Now it's just a case of working out how to present it. And yeah, I don't want to belabor this point too much. You guys could just watch me push some pixels around endlessly. And it doesn't really demonstrate anything. I have to say the timestamp feels naked without a date on it. Yeah. There's just part of it feels incomplete without the date. But I don't know if that's me just as someone who likes to have dates on things. What if what if each of these are on its own row? Yeah, see, that's getting ridiculous now for far too much space being used up. So yeah, I think what do I think? I don't think this is quite working. I think yeah, I think it needs a bit of a rethink generally. So Steve says, do the words node and flow need to be present? Well, I would suggest yes. If you haven't named things, then just having random hex strings potentially isn't ideal. That said, and I say this knowing you guys are throwing suggestions at me in the chat, and yeah. What if? Yeah, what does it look like, to Steve's suggestion of getting rid of the flow and node entirely? Is there something so the wrapping is still a bit of a problem, because if this is flow with a long name, and we'll ignore the fact that it doesn't update when you rename your flow, because it's a point in time snapshot. So yeah, I'm going to deploy that because I want this flow with a long name. That doesn't look good. My concern with trimming the flow name is you trim it. Well, yeah. So the next thing is to look at the wrapping, as Steve has suggested. So it would be better if the node, if this didn't wrap. So let's stick yeah, what is it? White space no wrap. But I've got a sneaking suspicion one of those is hyphenated and one isn't. Yeah, white space is hyphenated, but no wrap isn't. I've never understood that. White space, I'm sure. Oh, anyway. I seem to remember reading a piece years ago about just some of the strange inconsistencies in text style in CSS, about when they hyphenate stuff and when don't they. Okay, so well, it's not wrapping. Because I've told it can't wrap either of those. Look, it's wrapping the date instead, and then refusing to wrap any more. Okay, that I must have some other weird CSS or some relevant CSS going on. So let's have a look at what's going on. Have I got any? Let's do white space, no wrap on that as well. So we're just looking at the top one, because I'm just modifying the CSS directly on the top one. It's not going to apply to the one below. So that's now not wrapping anything, but what we kind of want it to do is to wrap, because if the flow name, for the default size sidebar, if the flow name now just causes the node name to be permanently hidden, that we haven't improved things, we've made things worse. Okay. Oh, and Well spotted, yeah. We don't want this scroll bar down here. I hadn't even spotted that scroll bar up here. Yeah, look at that. We don't like scroll bars, nested scroll bars. It's just ugly. What I'm trying to figure out though is why this one, we want white space. No, which is it? If we go look up white space, but there are others. What is it? It's come on, there must be. Is it word break? I seem to remember we were looking at this recently actually. Oh, overflow wrap. I saw it. Overflow wrap. And what are our choices for overflow wrap? Let's try overflow wrap anywhere just to see what that actually does. So that I think does exactly what we, yeah. It'd perhaps be easier if so you can see the links now, so you can see the reflow is now working, but yeah. I mean, the important bit is the node name. That's what everyone is. That's what we want to keep in mind. The node name is the thing that everyone's used to using, used to being there. So we don't want to make that less accessible by adding in the flow name. You know what, maybe maybe the answer is a tooltip. Though before I go to tooltip, yeah, Steve, let's just see what. So what was the style we wanted? Message meta, we want overflow wrap anywhere. Then this is the node. This is the flow, and then this one you want, yeah, text overflow ellipsis. Trouble is, I can't quite remember. I can never remember where text overflow ellipsis is meant to go. Is it meant to go on the parent container or the? Oh, that's not doing it at all. Why not? Style, that style. Because I put that in the wrong place. And I'm just doing it in line if we settle on anything, then I'll go and update the proper CSS classes. Just right now, easier to keep it all in one place. So not quite working for me. This one I want to have white space node wrap as well. See, I'm still feeling like having the node prefix. Otherwise it's just text without meaning, out of context. And if nothing else, even if we scrap the idea of the flow name in this way, that's actually some good CSS going on up there to prevent the unsightly wrapping. So that's good. But yeah. Yeah, I can't remember if it was, did it used to be node colon, or I can't remember. So we'll figure that out in a minute. But yeah, I'm less enthused by having the flow name. Let's see what it looks like with tooltips. Although I'm always wary of tooltips in the debug sidebar because they don't always play nice when things are scrolling and disappearing. Yeah, is putting it in the tooltip a reasonable compromise? And also, if I do that and do Control-Shift-L, yeah, it gets removed. That's good. And yeah, Bugtails is right. With we could actually add more metadata about the message. For example, what's my example? I'm fairly sure we escape HTML. Yeah, we escape HTML. So yeah, is that good enough? Does that, I mean, it's not very discoverable. Can the delay be minimized? Yeah, if we go and look at popover. Yeah. What we can do is, so tooltip is just a convenience function for red.popover.create with predefined set of behaviors. So just looking through to make sure. Yeah. And it does some tooltippy type stuff of if there's a tooltip that includes a keyboard action, then just automatically put the keyboard shortcut in line. We don't need that here. What we want is, yes, it's a tooltip. Our target is node link. Trigger is to hover. It's a small one and we want it beneath it, ideally. The label is going to be this. And then all of that just to reduce these guys. Maybe increase the hide time. Yeah, and we can knock that back to be fairly instant. Yeah, we'll make it symmetrical. My only pause is, what if you wanted to copy, you can't get to the text. There is a popover mode, which I don't think is compatible with tooltip. Let me just... Yeah, there is some special behaviors around tooltips that I think we do want. Are there? Yeah, clicking on it takes you straight there anyway. Yeah. You know, having gone around the houses a bit, I think this is probably... this feels okay to me. So just a bit of tidy up then. See, I thought this was going to be a really super quick one tonight. And we would get on to a different issue. But we are going to just update some of these CSS styles into the core. So where do we want it? Debug.scss. And then we are looking for red UI debug message meta. Here. And we're going to add overflow wrap anywhere to that. Now there's a slight risk that we reuse these styles elsewhere in the UI, but we'll I would hope we use them reasonably consistently, so where we use one, we'll use them as a set, so that this is a fairly self-contained set of changes. That one. We want white space no wrap on debug message name. Well, are there any more? No. Cool. I think that's actually okay. It looks absolutely no different to how it did before, but even just that little touch of wrapping the text better looks good. One thing I have noticed is, which is causing me a little heartache, is the different padding. Oh, did you see a double scroll bar? Oh yeah, okay. I can live with, yeah, that scroll bar is happening. Yeah, I can live with that. It's happening at a unnaturally small window size by my judgment. But no, the bit that's causing me heartache right this second is the left-hand alignment of these guys. So message meta, you've got see that this guy's got padding, which I don't think he needs. And then this guy has got padding. Well, he needs something. But at least this message.payload, these two left-hand edges now line up where they didn't before. But by making that by disabling the padding on message name, you can see we're losing the white space gap. But we can fix that, because what we want is, if it wraps, we don't want any padding on. So in fact, we can stick extra padding on the right-hand edge of the date to make up for all of it. So top, right, bottom, left. So left we want 0, so it's lined up properly. This one we're going to make 10, and then this guy we're going to do that. So there's a nice little air gap between these guys, and when they scroll, everything's nicely left end aligned. Awesome. Right, there's another thing to deal with, subflows, our old favourite. I'm going to stick a debug node in here, and this function node, I'm going to do a node.warn a message from the inside. Okay, so this subflow will now both log from a debug node, and it's going to log from a function node. And that's in Subflow 1. I'm going to come over to a clean workspace. So Subflow 1, inject I'm not adding anything after it. So when we trigger this subflow, message from the inside coming from node, well, let's see, what is this node? This subflow is 26, you see here 26C8. So when you look at debug, you can see the node location is 26C8 on flow 3. So that's all good because it's telling us it's coming from, it's being logged from inside the subflow. Now this one, it's saying it's node debug 6 coming from the inside, but it's not debug 6, it's a debug node from inside the subflow. Trouble is there's nothing here telling you which subflow. Okay. If we have a look at subflow 2, you can see subflow 2 just contains a subflow 1. It's the other favourite, which is a nested subflow. So let's see what it gives us when we trigger it. So this subflow 2 has an ID of 2D26. And again, the function node is showing 2D26 on flow 3, and that debug node is still saying debug 6. And clicking on it will just reveal the subflow. But the flow label is right. It is telling us, from a user's perspective, these debug messages are coming from a node on flow 3. The only anomaly here is this, it's saying debug 6 here rather than the origin. I'm not going to get into that. I've been through these loops many times and my head is not in the right space to try and pick apart what's the right debug information to be shown when you're dealing with subflows. But the main thing I wanted to do is just to make sure the information we're getting here, flow 3, that it's reasonable. Now, there's an argument to be said that could give you more metadata about the subflow. Yeah, that could be in the tooltip, but I'm not going to get into that right now, I don't think. Am I? Or am I not? Do we have the information we might need? That's the curious question. Of course, yeah, saying I'm not going to get into it, and the first thing I do is I start getting into it. So if I do source node.path out of curiosity, I inject that, and now if we have a look, there you can see the path. A9 is the first one, and then 26C8. So 26C8 is the subflow outside. If I inject this one, you can now see the path has got 3 elements. A9B1, which is the debug node right at the heart. 2D26, which I'm guessing is the, what's this node's ID? No, it's F7BBF. So who's 2D26? Ah, he's 2D26. This node down here, the one we triggered. 2D26 and then F7BBF. So I don't know if you can see, I'm looking at this string of node IDs, which is this path property. So I want to track down who is F7BBF. Okay, that's confusing. Don't think it's quite the right information. I mean, it's an internal thing. I can't remember how we construct that now. Path pi. Right. I need to read my own help. So the incoming path value is a slash separated list of IDs that identifies the complete parentage of the node that generated this message. So the very first one will be a flow. Then if there are subflows involved, it will be sequences of subflow instance IDs. I don't know if it has the type though. That might be out of date. Let me just yeah, it is out of date. So here, look, you can see it's slash separated, and it's A9B because that's the flow we're on. You can see up here, A9B. And then 26C8 must be this subflow instance ID. 26, yeah. So that's all the bits of information you need for the parentage, if that's the right word. If I trigger this one, so A9B is the flow we're on. 2D26 should be this instance node, because this is the node on the flow. And then F7BBF. Is that this? Yeah, F7BBF. So that's the ID of the subflow instance node. And then it's the node inside that, which is the thing we're interested in. So yeah, but the point being, all that information, then, well, for some reason, I then parse that out. I think that's, yeah, we parse it out because we're trying to decide what should be highlighted when we hover on that message. If there's only a single part to this path, if it just has this first value, then it's a regular node in a flow. If I trigger these two guys, look, you can see OCCDC, which is the flow we're on. So if pathParts.length is 1, then the source is on a flow, so we can just link to it directly. However, if there's more than one part, it means we're somewhere inside a subflow. But rather than bury too deep, from a user's perspective, tell them what node on a flow, what subflow instance is at the top level, even if the debug is buried deep within. Because this is the node we're able to highlight. We can't go highlighting deep inside a subflow. That said, I think we do a nice little trick here. If the subflow's open, yeah, I forgot. I did get this working. Notice, even though we're inside a template, and when I hover over this message, look in the main workspace and you can see it does highlight the message that it came from. Likewise, here, if I'm in Subflow 2, these two messages which came from inside that subflow, it does highlight in that workspace. So it's, yeah, it is more useful than, yeah, it is trying to be useful. What I do want to do is just fix this comment because it is wrong. That slash list doesn't have yeah, it doesn't have the type IDs, and nor does it have the actual node ID on the end. This is just about the parentage. Okay, do we want to do anything with all that information? Oh, go on. It'll be fun. So, path parts. Yeah, we do pass path parts down. We haven't modified it at all. No, good. Right. pretty sure content gets to be a function as well as just a hard-coded string. And I'm doing that because, well, I'll explain why. Yeah, so we've still got the label even with the function. Good. Steve asks, could I do a quick demo of the continuous search? Yes, I will do a quick demo of the wonderful continuous search feature you've recently added, Steve. I'll do that in a sec, but let me just keep my flow going before I have to call it an evening. But I will do a quick demo of that. And Bobby Tables, your suggestion is pretty on the money for where I'm headed right now. So what we're going to do now, so the reason we want to return a function is in order to have new lines and all that sort of have better formatted text, I can't just return text. I've got to actually create a DOM element. And I don't want to be creating a DOM element for every debug message just in case someone hovers. So by putting it in a function, we defer creating the content of the tooltip until someone actually hovers. So what we're going to do is just create a div. Yeah. Then we're going to do source node dot path dot for each, because we've already split it to an array at this point. And remind myself I can use modern JavaScript these days. Again, force of habit. So what we're going to do is text p.append to content. Add a little indent. Okay, so we're getting there. So you can now hover over and it gives you a nice little list. Just in the interest of space and time, we'll do that. And then rather than path, we're going to do this on a new thing called path names. Because, and we have to do it here. Again, if you remember my comment about the pop-up window, the code running in here does not have access to do lookups directly of names from IDs. So we've got to get all of that information in this file, and then the stuff I add to this object will get passed through to this code, whether this code is running in that window or in the editor itself. So yeah, there's a little overhead here doing this lookup, but yeah, that's what we got. Then we can do path names equals path parts dot map. And then if red dot nodes dot workspace ID else, those IDs are going to be instance nodes. Is that right? So I think I can do reds.nodes.node ID. No, we're going to make this and I'm going to spell out index because ID and IDX are too close. Let's just look up the map function. I'm pretty sure the second argument will be the index. No, not that map. I want array.map. Array.map. Yes, second argument is the index. Good. So rather than do this lookup twice, we know that the first element, i.e. when index is 0, the first one is the workspace label, so we can just look that up. Otherwise, it's a Subflow instance node, so we can look it up this way. And then if it's a Subflow instance node, we can, in fact, let's try it like this. Subflow, and then either instance node.name or instance node.type. Ooh, that might not be what we want, but we'll try it. Yeah, we'll try that. I'm not sure it's quite what we want, but I just want to protect myself here. In fact, we should only create this tooltip if path names is defined, because there are cases where it won't be defined. So yeah, we don't want to break things too badly. Right, if we inject these guys and let's hover. Okay, we're getting close. So it tells us the flow, the subflow, and yeah, okay, and the type. I think, yeah, what do I think? What I really want is, given an instance node, can I just jump straight to its definition? Or do I have to parse its type string? I apologize if I'm not speaking in full sentences, but let's see, red.nodes.node. Oh, no, undefined. Curious, why is that undefined? It shouldn't be undefined. If I export it, that's all the subflows. Here's the yeah, see. Curious, this. Oh, it's not. Right. It's not undefined, because I'm assigning it to a value, and the result of assigning to a value is undefined. So no, we've got the subflow. Here it is. What I'm looking for is there I can't believe in all these years I've never added a quick lookup from an instance node to the actual Subflow template. Sure, we can parse type and pull out that hex string and use that to go and get the definition. Oh, That's what we're going to have to do, because I'm not mucking around with this now. It's getting on. So we're going to take the type and we're going to trim off, is it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to trim off 8, the first 8 chars. So either the instance has a name, or we go and do something. What do we do? We do red.nodes.subflow .name. That's what we want now. So either the instant node has a name, or we'll display the name of the subflow. I think this will be goodness. Yeah, and looking at that, I don't think we need the prefixes. So out of interest, if I change this subflow 1 to naming things is hard. I can't think of a single name. Pencil. And I'm saying that because I've looked down and there is a pencil on my desk. I'm tired. I want to stop. So if we now inject that, you can see it says node pencil coming from flow 3, subflow pencil. Yeah. Maybe these prefixes are a bit more redundant. Does all of that. And then what we really want is the true node. The true node name, which is that source node alias. If source node alias, so I'm pretty sure that means we're looking at a node inside a subflow. Then we're going to add one more entry. And we're going to use source node alias. You guys following? I'm just about following. I think the end result's going to be worthwhile. Flow, pencil, and then 7, because I haven't got the... So you can see the last entry there is 7222. If I go into this subflow and edit the template, one of these nodes, yeah, 7222, it's this function node. Yeah. Question is, do we have any more information about that source node? I don't know if we can. If you the function size, yeah, not at the moment. At the moment we only have the alias. I'll tell you what, because there are times when we won't have the alias, so I'm going to remove that from there. I'm going to come back in here, and when we build up path names, here I'm going to say if o alias and alias node. Because of the way Subflow modules work, I've a nasty feeling all of this might yet fall apart if you're using Subflow modules, or at least things will be null that, or not set that you don't expect, such as underscore alias might not be a node we know anything about because it might be deep inside. Yeah. So let's check, does that alias node, is that something we know about? If so, then path names dot push. We're going to add one more name to the list. That name is going to be alias node dot name or alias node dot type plus colon plus alias node dot id. And a nice bit of spam comments in the chat. I would go wield the ban hammer if I was more awake, but we're finishing in a moment. So let's inject these guys again. Hover, flow3 pencil, and the function. And so it tells us the type of the node and the ID, which feels a bit more useful to help identify what it is. Flow3 pencil debug 6, and that's because it comes from a debug node. Flow3, subflow 2, yeah. This feels a bit more useful, doesn't it? Another one. Yeah. So, what other tweaks can we make briefly before we... I think I agree. I'm going to bump it up. Maybe. I'm not going to go too far. There is... I don't know if you saw the discussion. There's a brand new Font Awesome 6 coming. Now, without getting into the history of it, the reason we're still on Font Awesome 4 is because they made so many breaking changes in 5, there was just no way we could upgrade. But I think they've learnt the error of their ways, and Font Awesome 6 claims to be backwards compatible with back to version 4 for, it claims to be backwards compatible, which would be awesome if we can update Font Awesome to jump straight to 6. What I'm looking for here is an icon we can use just to give a bit of, tree-like decoration. But they don't tend to have them on here, I don't think, or quite the sort of thing I'm picturing. Yeah, see if we can go old school and just do it in ASCII. Oh, you've even pasted it in the chat, which I can just copy and paste from. So, yada, yada, yada. If IDX is greater than 0, although I reserve the right that if this looks trash in the default font, then we're going to pretend like we never thought of it. Oh, no, that's going to work. Yeah, I don't need to close these divs. jQuery, yeah. That's enough to tell it we're building a div element and it does the work. Right. But having got that tree element, what we want is a bit of space, and then I actually think we're going to drop the padding all the way down to 3. I know. 1 minute we're 5, then we're 10, then we're 8, now we're 3. Because I think that elbow is going to give us some. I think what we're going to do is a bit of marvellous maths. How are we going to do it this way? Math dot max of 0 and idx minus 1 times 3. Have I missed? Yeah, I've missed. No, what have I missed? Index minus 1 times 3, that's the margin left, so the first one is going to be okay, let's mix back to 5. What do we think? Does this look all right? I just want to see it without any padding for a moment, just to convince myself that I'm actually changing the padding. Yeah, but it's interesting there to see actually it has quite a bit of that elbow character already has quite a bit of leading padding, doesn't it? So I wonder actually, is that enough of an effect to show the hierarchy? Do we need to nest them all in? Yeah. Yeah, we do. Okay, if we go shoot that back up to 10. That works quite well because now the elbow is below the leading edge of the word above. Yeah. Now, in some ways, it would be nice to, yes, clicking on this node takes you straight there. It would be nice to be able to bring the mouse into this tooltip and be able to click on individual entries to take you to them. We have the wherewithal to do that. I've been going in about 90 minutes, well, coming up to 90 minutes. I've yet to hear the front door close to tell me my wife's home, so I'm just going to keep running with it for the moment. But when that front door closes, it's not long before the kettle goes on, and you know what that means. There is a mode with popover which lets you interactive. That's what we want. If we add interactive true, we inject these guys. No, I can now get my mouse in here. I can interact with it, and it only disappears when I move away. Oh, so this panel is now potentially far more useful, because what if, rather than rather than these guys, let's make these A tags. Yeah, do all that, do all that, do all that. Then what we want is on click don't go anywhere, but we're then going to trigger the message source click event, which source ID, get all the nodes that could have logged this message. Nodes. Okay, this is a bigger bit of work than I can do right this second, but wouldn't it be awesome now with this? Oh, okay, so I need to, it's broken the styling, but you can see now I can interact and I can click on each of these bits and it highlights, at the moment it just highlights the node in the flow, but wouldn't this be awesome if clicking on each of these would take me to that bit directly? Oh, this feature has just, the tooltip approach is where we should have started 80 minutes ago. And I'm sure if I scroll back in the chat, I think, was it Bobby Tables who started with the suggestion with the tooltip? Yeah, it was someone. Yes, a large tooltip seems more ideal with flow name and other details, Bobby Tables says. Well, you get the brownie points for being ahead of the pack tonight, old Bobby Tables. So that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to finish it now. I am going to wrap up now. But from scratching around, trying to make sense of something that wasn't quite working, we now have something awesome. Or, yeah, something that is far more useful than I had imagined. Let's just see, have I given that a useful CSS class? No. Okay. So I need to go fix up the CSS or give these things prop CSS. I might have a play with the tree style. I mean, that ASCII art works, but we don't use it anywhere else. So yeah. In fact, just do style display block. That should fix the immediate layout, but it won't fix the colouring. I need to go and, yeah, so at least the font colour's wrong, but we at least got the layout back. And then I can click on each of these. So yeah, a bit more work to do to get be able to pass through the right arguments to this message source click function to do something it doesn't currently do, which is yeah, something it doesn't currently do, but we can make it do it. Nice. And then I do feel I ought to test it with some Subflow modules, but I don't like Subflow modules. They're a real pain to work with. So, but there we are. I'm going to leave it there. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Hope that was interesting. It was one of those of just pushing some pixels around until we think they look all right. But yeah. Oh, Softy2K. Steve, you wanted to see the search. Then, so what we can do is, if I search for, say, debug, and it just takes me to the first debug, you can now see, through Steve's work, is we have a little search widget down here, which tells you the current search term, how many results, and which result you're on. So I can click next, and it just walks through all those results without having to keep the search dialog open, and it loops through. And if I hit the search box, it comes back up with that search still there. If I clear the search, it goes. But the search history, which we added in another recent live stream, means we can quickly get back. Yeah, and it works across configs and tabs. So if I do a search for, I don't know, flow. Oh, that's interesting. We have some keyboard focus issues, Steve. At this point, I expect to hit the down arrow in order to navigate the search list, whereas in fact the down arrow is triggering the search menu. A little buglet for you. So here, I've searched for flow 9 of 10. And if we search through, you can now see it. If the search result is a flow in itself, it does highlight in the top bar, which is nice. Hit escape to clear the search. Anyway, that's the continuous search that Steve added, which is awesome. All coming in 3.0, along with lots more. And with that, I am going to leave it. So thanks for joining, everyone. I hope that was interesting. I will be back same time, same place next week for another, we've gone 90 minutes. This is a long one, but, good stuff, good work being done. So have a good week. Take it easy. We've got a new FlowForge release coming on Thursday in the day job. Lots of fun stuff coming along there as well. So do all the things, like and subscribe, say hi, all the stuff I always ask you guys to do in these videos. But I'll be back next week doing it all over again. Have a good evening. Bye.